To paint this apple, I'm going to take a really close look at all of the different colors that I see. I'm seeing highlights, I'm seeing places where it's really dark and really vibrant. Using a tool like this can help you single out really tricky colors to see them a little bit more easily. Try to identify the main hues that you see. I see primarily red and green here, but which red and which green? In your watercolor set, you have a bunch of different options, so look closely to try to figure out what you're really seeing so that you can mix with accuracy. Try to identify whether you're seeing neutralizations anyplace in your object, and then where you're seeing shades, where you're seeing tints, and then do a color study so that you can do that problem solving ahead of time. Next, make sure you have the right brushes for the job. If you have an area of small details, you'll need a small brush. And then for larger areas where you're planning on blending one color into another and creating gradients, make sure you have a medium-sized to larger-sized brush. In watercolor, we always want to work in layers. And we need to work quickly because our paint dries quickly. So mix your colors ahead of time in the wells of your watercolor set. And then identify where it's lightest in the object you're painting and start with those lightest layers and allow them to dry. Next, identify where the values are maybe slightly darker and begin your next layer. So here you can see that I've started really light, and now I'm taking a look at where in this apple the colors are more vibrant, and I'm adding my next layer. And I'm working wet into wet. You can either work wet into wet, or you can work with layered washes. Either technique is totally fine. Next, I'm going to take a look at where the values are quite a bit darker. And here I've got shades of that red that I've mixed ahead of time and I'm adding. So that's the next step, is take a look at your object and pay attention to where the values are really deep and dark. Turn your paper around so that you can get the edge really clean with the tip of the brush. Now I'm adding neutralizations. I'm paying attention to the shapes of the colors as I paint them, and I'm looking at my reference object a lot to make sure that I'm putting the colors in the right place. If colors get too dark, use your paper towel to blot. For areas of a painting where it's important that the paint stays in exactly the right spot, make sure that the paper is completely dry and that the surrounding areas are completely dry also. Remember to paint in layers and to gradually get darker. So now I'm adding yet another layer of a shade of this kind of neutralized red that I've mixed. And I could create a gradient here by just fading that out into the rest of the painting, but I'm choosing to let this layer dry completely and use the layered wash technique. Now that that layer is dry, I'm going to go back in and then tackle some of those transitions from light to dark and from one color to the next. So remember, you can either use the gradient technique to make that happen, or you can go back in and add layers and overlap the layers to create gradual transitions also. Now I'm taking a really close look at the colors of the parts of the apple that are lightest, including the highlights, and I'm making adjustments and adding more paint as needed. I'm taking a close look at the colors and the highlights, which in this instance are more pink. And now I'm taking another look at the places of the apple that are light. I'm dabbing up excess paint. I'm also getting some places wet with just a wet brush so that I can reactivate the paint and remove a little bit of it where things got a little bit too dark. My final step was to allow everything to dry so that I could paint the stem. Now it's finished.